Joining us virtually online, like in Zoom, or watching us later on social media, we're glad you're here. And also we welcome those of you that made it out here for our Sanctuary Sunday. I welcome you and thank you for coming. My name is Suzanne Lamb. I'm the worship assistant today. And Martin Taylor, our prayer chaplain, is here with us. And we have our musicians, Danny, Bauer, and Felina. So if we would gather our thoughts, and if you would like, you can close your eyes. Get ready for our opening prayer. Take a deep breath and breathe out. Holy Presence, we know that in God, we can never be separate from love, from truth, from infinite intelligence, and the source of all good. We gather here in the sacred time to open our hearts and minds to the one power and the one presence. We gratefully receive the energies of divine light and love pouring in and through us. And we affirm that we are here this morning for a divine purpose. We trust that that purpose is now being fulfilled, for we know now we are in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. And so it is. Amen. So now Felina and Danny will lead us to our opening song.
There's nothing complicated about the way we live. We are here with each other, happy to give, proud of who we are, humble beneath the stars. We're everything we need, the moon and sun. There's more than enough here for everyone. All we have, we share, and all of us, we care. So come on, welcome to our family time. Welcome to our brotherly time. We're happy to give and take to the friends we're making. There's nothing we won't do. Welcome to our family time. Welcome to our happy to be time. This is our festival. You know that most of all, we're happy to share it all. There's a bond between us that no one can explain. It's a celebration of life. We see our friends again. I'll be there for you, and I know you'll be there for me too. So come on, welcome to our family time. Welcome to our brotherly time. We're happy for giving, taking to the friends we're making. There's nothing that we won't do. Welcome to our family time. Welcome to our happy to be time. This is our festival. We know that best of all, we're here to share it all.
Thank you, Felina. Thank you, Danny. And welcome, welcome, welcome to our family time here. Thank you for being here. And unity is a positive, practical approach for spiritual living based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. We believe in the truth and the beauty in every spiritual tradition. We honor the many paths to the one God. Wherever you are on the journey of faith, you're always welcome here. The purpose of our Unity on the North Shore is to create a safe space where people are empowered to take risks and live their deepest truth. And if this is your first Sunday with us, we extend a loving welcome. Many of us are surprised to learn that there was a spiritual community that thought and believed the same things that we did. We felt like coming home. I felt that way when I found Unity in 1997, and I've been here since. We hope your experience this morning is powerful and that you will return. And now Danny and Felina is going to lead us into our group song.
This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. This is the week, there is no defeat, there is no defeat. I will rejoice, we will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the week, there is no defeat. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the week, there is no defeat. This is the month of the Lord's triumph, of the Lord's triumph. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the month of the Lord's triumph. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the month of the Lord's triumph. This is the year, peace and love appear, peace and love appear. I will rejoice, we will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the year, peace and love appear. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the year, peace and love appear.
Thank you, Felina and Danny. Good morning. My name is Martin Taylor. I'm going to be the prayer chaplain for today. So let's begin by reading and considering the daily word. The daily word for today, Sunday, April 16th, is world peace. And the affirmation is, I live my vision for a peaceful world. To bring about peace in the world, I begin by paying attention to my first reaction when I feel I have been treated unjustly. I do not deny my feelings, but neither do I allow anger, envy, or other negative feelings to take control of my response. I feel my feelings, but I remain committed to living the truth I know. Regardless of behavior, every person is a divine being, a living expression of God. I call upon my divine faculties of love, faith, and strength to guide my next steps. No matter how another responds, I remain centered in God. My efforts make a difference. Peace between individuals creates peace within families, in communities, and among the nations of the world. And the scripture is, the effect of righteousness will be peace, and the result of righteousness, quietness and trust forever. Isaiah chapter 32, verse 17. And now as we focus on prayer, let's begin by taking in a deep breath. As we breathe in the air into our lungs, we breathe in calm and God's peace into our hearts. Let's take a moment to let that percolate in. And as we release the breath, we allow those concerns of the world around us just to recede into the background for a moment. Blessed Holy Spirit, thank you for meeting us here. We take a moment now to spend time in silence, in quiet prayer for ourselves and for our loved ones. And now let us hold in prayer all who are suffering worldwide. We affirm the presence of God's love, grace, and guidance in every person and in every human condition. And so it is. Amen. If you wish to pray in person, I will be at the candle at the back of the sanctuary at the end of the service. And if you are reading online, you can put a prayer into the chat box where it will be prayed over. And now we return to Danny and Felina for yet more music.
I'll sit down for this one. Oh boy. Now the time for all good men to get together with one another. We gotta iron our problems and iron out our course and try to live as brothers. And try to find a peace without stepping on one another. And do respect the women of the world. Remember we all have mothers. We gotta make this land a better land than the world in which we live. And we gotta help each man be a better man with the kindness that we give. Yes, I know we can make it. I know down well we can work it out. Oh yes we can, I know we can. Yes we can, why can't we if we want it? Yes we can. I know we can make it work. I know we can make it if we try. Oh yes we can, I know we can. Yes we can. Good God Almighty, yes we can. Hey. Take care of all the children, little children of the world. Cause we got that children's hope for the future is the little bitty girls and boys. We gotta make this land a better land than the world in which we live. And we gotta make each other be a better man with the kindness that we give. Yeah, yeah, yes, I know we can make it. Hey, I know darn well we can work it out. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. No, why can't we if we want it? Yes, we can. I know we can make it work. I know we can make it if we try. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. Why can't we if we want it? Yes, we can. I know we can make it. Yeah, I know we can make it if we try. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, yes, we can. Yes, we can. Why can't we if we want it? Yes, we can. I know we can make it work. I know we can make it if we try. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. Why can't we if we want it? Yes, we can.
Gosh, the conviction that you bring to that song makes me believe it too. We can do it. Yeah. Wow. So let's see. I grew up in a really small town. In fact, the church that I attended as a young kid, there weren't enough Baptists or Presbyterians in town to have two separate churches, so they were one congregation, which was kind of a perfect background for unity, because I never really understood the distinction between those two, right? Like, ooh, it all kind of gets messed up. And so what I kind of remember about the church calendar, or the church year back then, was that there was Christmas, of course, that was a big deal. And then my grandma and grandpa always filled the communion cups, the little plastic cups with grape juice, and that was once a month, so we were there up with that. And then there was Easter, right? Jesus resurrected, and that was a big deal. Beyond that, I don't really have a memory of a more kind of extensive liturgical calendar. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s and went to work for the Episcopalians that I realized that, it's not just sort of Jesus didn't end with the resurrection. It wasn't a hallelujah and that was the end of the story. That actually Jesus' resurrection was just the beginning of Easter. In those traditions, Easter goes on for another 7 weeks. Easter doesn't end for Catholics or Lutherans or Episcopalians until Pentecost, which is 7 weeks from last Sunday, right? So there's this whole process that gets described in terms of being able to move from that resurrection experience, where we are sort of raised from the dead, to the actual ascension experience. I want to share with you what Charles Fillmore writes about that process here. Boy, if somebody knows how to turn the code that you have to log into your phone every time, help me with that after service, will you? So this is how Charles Fillmore describes ascension in the Revealing Word. He says, the ascending or progressive unfoldment of man from the animal of the spiritual. Remember, he was writing in the 1800s, so you got to fix the pronouns as we move through this. It is measured... YouTube jumped in there. It is measured by 3 degrees or states of consciousness. First, the animal. Second, the mental or psychical. And third, the spiritual. Jesus manifested himself as the man on the physical plane, right? That's when he walked around for 33 years, 3 years doing ministry. Himself as a man on the physical plane, from which he was resurrected to the mental or psychical form. From thence, he ascended to the spiritual. So I think there's a lot for us to really dig into around that psychical form, right? That mental form, that and more common kind of unity or New Thought language, it would be around in this area of mind, right? We have this physical embodiment that we experience when we're walking around on the planet, and that's part of our experience. But then there's this mental, this state of mind where it's the ideas we hold that actually are the creative force that we bring to bear in our own life experience. And then the spiritual dimension is what we celebrate once Jesus actually ascends, right? So Jesus was walking around, and let's go back to now the biblical sort of unfolding of this and the telling of the tale. Jesus was walking around for almost 50 days after the ascension, but not as sort of a physical being. He would kind of show up. There's a story where he showed up on the road to Emmaus. This is shortly after the resurrection, right? And he just starts talking with a couple of disciples who are kind of dejected and despondent and really kind of mourning what had gone on. And this person shows up next to them and asks them what's going on, what's up with them, and like builds this relationship, this connection with them as they're walking these 7 miles to Emmaus. And it wasn't until that night when Jesus was going to move along on his way that he was invited to join them for dinner, right? And then Jesus does the breaking bread and looking up to the sky, and suddenly a light bulb goes on and they realize they have been with Jesus this whole day, right? So Jesus shows up a couple of times over these 50 days in that kind of form, just kind of surprising his followers and reassuring them and teaching them and continuing to instruct them and sort of helping them to build faith about what's next, what comes next. And I think that's a really important question for all of us. I mean, personally, certainly, like what comes next? After the resurrection, what happens next in my experience, right? Now that we're through Easter, what's next in this spring, this emergency? How am I going to begin to demonstrate my spiritual nature more fully? What does that look like? What's next? And we've also been doing that in community, right? That's what's next for Unity on the North Shore is a big, big question. We'll be talking a little bit later with a RPH update about some stuff that's happening around the sale of our property, our building. That's been a long process. Feels like a crucifixion in a lot of ways. But there's some movement beginning to happen. And so the question of what's next is gonna be more prevalent, I think, as we move forward. And what I want you to know is that your Board of Trustees has been working with that question of what's next for quite a while, and not just in terms of what's going to happen with the sale, but in terms of who we are as a spiritual community, what we represent, what we stand for. And so I want to talk a little bit about that work, and I'm actually building this next 5 weeks, the series that we'll be talking about, the topics that we'll be covering, really arise out of the work that your trustees have been doing through this last, many months, years even. And what we really found that we needed is that we've been kind of in a mode of doing the next thing that's needed, right? Just take the next step and move forward. And a couple of our trustees have really wanted more of a, now this is where I run into trouble because we haven't settled on the name of what we call these, but what we have developed is 5 ideas, 5 energies, 5, some of us call them pillars, right? We want to be able to stand strong in what we believe as we make decisions about what comes forward. Others of us like the word rivers because we want it to be an energy that flows and is fairly malleable and adaptable. So we haven't figured out exactly what the names of these 5 things are. But we've gathered together. I want to talk a little bit the process. I do have a slide of us. This reminds me of, just as Jesus sort of was walking through, reassuring his followers, he gathered in the upper room right before the ascension, right? He gathered in the upper room with his followers. And so this is a picture of us gathered at an Italian restaurant as we were starting to really dig and delve into this question of what's next. We had a weekend of discussion, a weekend of prayer, a weekend of play, and obviously joining together and breaking bread. It was just a beautiful kind of experience to get a little bit more clarity around these energies, these pillars, these rivers that we see really guiding us as we move forward. I'm thinking of them more as almost guiding lights, just as if you think about sailors who used to navigate by the stars, that these are stars by which we can begin to navigate the choices that we make as a ministry. And these choices are going to guide way more than just, they're going to guide everything from the spaces that we might be looking at to move into, right? If we're, let's see, do I want to say, yeah. They will be sort of energies that we want to make sure can be well represented in the programming that we offer, in the classes that we do, in the activities. And what I love about it is this isn't something that the board just kind of went off and made up on its own. We have been through some very deliberate processes to engage with the energies that we experience and that we kind of witness already active and alive in us as a community, right? This isn't aspirational who we want to become. This is based on who we already are, the energies that we already bring to our work and our time together. So you might imagine food showed up a lot. Not that that's one of the energies or values, but in the course of demonstrating that, that's a place where we kind of do it. So I want to share, I think the next slide is the 5 areas, guiding lights, the 5 rivers, the 5 pillars. We'll come up with some really wonderful, marketable title for these, but These are the dynamics that we want to make sure are evident in everything that we're doing and the choices that we're making. So the first is around community and connection. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. That's why, yes, we can do it all together, right? And then learning and discovery, that's long been a part of Unity's tradition. Unity was founded as a school of Christianity. Our founders never saw this as a bunch of churches, but it was about really learning and discovering and growing in our spiritual awareness. So that's been a part of our dynamic for a long, long time. Health and healing, also foundational to Unity teachings, but also it's what we find folks in this community are really, really interested in. When we do events that involve healing and health, and when there are opportunities to really look at the ways in which we may not be experiencing the wholeness that we were born to express, those seem to be areas that really resonate with us as a community. So we want to make sure that that's a strand, a string, a river, a pillar on which we're building our work together. Service and advocacy, we'll cover that at another time, and that's what you might expect, being of service. And the advocacy piece is really, there's a little bit of aspirational in that. We've long been doing work out in the community, but we would love to see greater connection happening in the broader Evanston community and beyond. And there is evidence of like that being a desire and part of our history too. And then lastly is this idea of home and reference. We are a safe space where people can take risks and live their deepest truth, where they are equipped and empowered to take risks and live their deepest truth. Let me say that more succinctly. We are a safe space where people are equipped and encouraged to take risks to live their deepest truth. That's been our purpose statement now for the last few years. So these dynamics will help us to be able to fully kind of live into that. And so what we're going to do for the next 5 weeks is kind of explore what each of these 5 energies, how those get represented, and how we can maybe bring them into fuller expression in our own journeys and our own experiences. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. I had one more slide, I think, showing our board in the upper room. Our upper room this year was at the Hyatt House in the conference room there. And what you see here is there are, at one point, what we were doing is looking at everything, every activity that happens within the church calendar, right? Everything that happens administratively, everything that happens in terms of governance, everything that happens in terms of classes and services. So we had 12 sheets of paper around the wall, just all the activities that happen. And this exercise was specifically designed to make sure that the ribbons that you're seeing, those ribbons, each of the 5 colors represent each of those 5 dynamics that we just did. So what we're wanting to do is make sure that throughout the calendar year, we are creating experiences and environments and being able to include those energies in the programming that we're developing. So that gives you sort of a sense of the work that the board was about. I won't revisit this every single Sunday, but I wanted to have the context for where these 5 subjects, these 5 dynamics that we're digging into are being reflected. Yeah? Okay. So community and connection. This this has been such a rich topic for me to dig into in this last week. Many of you know that here in Evanston there was a shooting down near the beaches. And it's funny because I've been listening very closely to our current Surgeon General. I always thought of the nation's doctor was still kind of Dr. Fauci. That's who we've been listening to for so long. But we actually have a new Surgeon General. And actually, in truth, he's not new. He served once before, back in 2013 to 2014. His name is Vivek Murthy. And he has this wonderfully holistic, and I've never heard a government official, especially one as high as a Surgeon General, talking about love as a power that we bring to bear in terms of public health. And so he has this amazing kind of framework for which he intends to move into this role. And for him, what he sees is, and I'm really condensing a lot of sort of the discussion points, but one of the things that he sees as an area that really would benefit most from our attention is around the idea of loneliness and disconnection. Like that there is such a predominance and a prevalence of folks who are feeling isolated and alone out there, and he sees that as kind of causative to the kinds of the dynamics that we see in mass shootings. He's dug into all kinds of research about those mass shooters and what they were experiencing when those horrible atrocities were committed. And there's almost always this element of deep, deep pain and tremendous isolation or shame and embarrassment that's common to all those experiences. And so what he takes from that, or what he invites us into out of that awareness, is that there are systemic ways in which this kind of isolation and alienation happens for all of us, right? If you think about just historically, and I'm going back thousands of years now, I'm following sort of his lead on this, but historically, our survival has really been dependent on being able to have trusting relationships with one another. He uses the example of a caveman. We know what happened to those prehistoric folks who tried to do it on their own. They got eaten. They're not around anymore. So we are, over the centuries, our cultures has really encouraged us, our very nature encourages us to work together, to have these collaborative connections that enrich life for all of us, that make us safer, that can make us that can make us more prosperous. Those kinds of relationships are crucial to us. And yet, in our culture now especially, there's more of a dynamic that we really want to do it on our own, like to be independent. We've elevated this idea of independence to such a degree that we've alienated ourselves from and sort of divorced ourselves from connections with others in a deep, deep way. And so he's suggesting that as we can begin to recognize those places where in our own hearts we've stepped back and we're isolating and we're not connecting with others, that we can begin to create some maybe different energies around that. And I think his invitations are really beautiful examples of practical things that we can do both in spiritual community as members of Unity on the North Shore, but that we can also bring to our own work and relationships out in the world. And he suggests kind of 4 pathways to that. And what I love is that, I mean, he's secularized them in some ways, but they are spiritual principles that we have long been espousing. And they are spiritual practices that I think all of us would do well to sort of deepen and bring more mindfulness to. So the first, he says, is that you just reach out and start to connect with people that you care about. The one caveat that he includes in that is that it can't be people that you live with. Those people, you've already got connection with them, right? You're already enjoying their company, and there's some level. But, and he uses the example of when he was last time around, that he was serving in this role as Surgeon General, that he was so immersed in his work that he let other relationships go. And it wasn't until that work ended very abruptly. I don't know, I didn't research into what exactly happened in terms of his career, but for whatever reason, he no longer had that job. And it was in that transition that he realized his only real connections, even when he was at home with his family, he was still thinking about work. He wasn't present with the people in his life. He had let fall the friendships or relationships that he had developed over a year, and his only connection was happening with the people that he worked with. And once that was gone, he fell into a deep kind of sense of isolation and depression and a sense of loneliness. So he knows sort of from personal experience how easy it is to fall into that. And so his invitation is that we begin to reach out to people that maybe we have not been in touch with. Anybody you care about, actually. And he's suggesting 15 minutes a day. I think that sounds like kind of a lot. I think we can maybe at least begin to do it with a little bit less of that much of a commitment, but that begin to, as someone crosses your mind, shoot them a text. Hey, you just crossed my mind. And to sort of validate the fact that that is a connection. Just the fact that you thought of them, that you remembered them, that there's some experience with which you have shared and that you resonated, that's a connection, and it deserves nurturing as much as any other. But I think too often as that arises, we don't think to pick up the phone, or we don't think to drop a note, or we don't think to just send a text. And part of his journey back, he had therapy to get through this, and I thought it was a brilliant idea. But his therapist has suggested that one of the things that he was feeling is a sense of resistance or shame to reaching out to people that he'd lost touch with. Oh, it's been so long. What are they going to think? And what do they think my motive is? He was really reluctant to just pick up the phone and ask. And what she suggests is that, most people, if they were to get a call, if you were to call someone in your life who you hadn't been in touch with, probably their response is going to be kind of surprise and gratitude and real appreciation that you made the effort to reach out and connect. Most people, that we have these connections that are deeper and broader than we ever sort of imagine or expect, because we've sort of narrowed our focus to this kind of little small place. And so that's what happens in our own personal lives, right? As we begin to do that in community, in spiritual community here, like become a little bit more willing to take a risk, say hello to somebody we don't know, maybe ask if there's some way we can support them in prayer, then we actually begin to build and strengthen our connectivity as a community. And we begin to have a greater platform or resource to be able to rely on, so that the dynamic of isolation and separation that seems to be so prevalent in so many ways and has been building for so long, we can kind of begin to let that grip loosen on us, both as a spiritual community. I also believe that it's a beautiful way in which we can grow. If we start taking care of one another more intentionally, more deliberately, if we start, notice that somebody's not been around, give them a call, just let them know you're thinking of them. As that kind of caring happens within a spiritual community, the community grows because it gets stronger. Not from anything that's happening on Sunday morning that I said brilliantly, but because there's a real sense of love and connection and community and caring that's now being shared. We punch huge holes in that sense of isolation. And I believe it goes beyond that, right? As we begin to embody that energy of community and connection, that energy of being willing to reach out and take the risk, then it actually I think spiritually has an impact beyond our lives. We become more open and receptive. Those who experience us in work and in other relationships and in other contexts and venues, they start to feel that same energy. And maybe we can sort of shift that whole dynamic of I got to do it myself, and that feeling that we're on our own in some of these challenges and stuff. Then we can begin to maybe create a world that is way more accepting and loving and kind and compassionate. And it all starts by sending a text to somebody who rises up in mind. Don't you think that's beautiful? So the next piece that he suggests is that, and this one, oh man, I got to work on. It's that we give our full attention to the people that we're in connection with, that we're in contact with. So I went home this weekend to visit my mom. I wasn't there last week for Easter, so I wanted to just get back. And so we were sitting around in a room, and my brother and sister-in-law have had a cat in their family for going on 20 years, and it was time for the cat to be gently moved into the next realm, as that's a very diplomatic way of saying that, right? So the cat had just died that week, and so there was some tender hearts, and certainly there was stuff to kind of talk about or share or be present to. And we're sitting around my mom's living room, and I'm putting together a jigsaw puzzle on my phone. My niece, who'd just driven in from Chicago, she was texting somebody. Even my mom was working on the Wordle puzzle that day. Like, we're all sitting in this room together when it's such a rare opportunity for us to be face to face, and we're on our devices. What I loved about Murthy's observation around this was, and instantly I start to feel like guilty, like, oh, why am I but what he says is, there's an element of that's planned in. These devices are designed to capture our attention, and it takes very intentional focus to be able to sort of shut that down and be present to whoever's right in front of us. So that's sort of the second of the 4 invitations I'm going to offer you this morning, that just start to be aware of how easy it is that, your phone just appears out of your pocket, and right there in front of you, there are people who really are longing to have a deeper kind of connection than we can possibly get on these devices. So that's number 2 in terms of creating greater connection. The third one, this won't surprise you, and this is a spiritual principle that we have been espousing forever, is that to be of service, to extend ourselves in some way out to help and support someone else. And the observation that he brought to this that was a little bit different take on it than I've spoken about before, is that when especially if we're feeling lonely or some sense of isolation or a little bit disconnected ourselves, like when I'm in that way, it's sort of like, what do I have to give? There's sort of this emptiness and I'm lonely. I somehow have to go fix that before I can really be of service or of benefit in connection with anybody else. And what McMurthy suggests is that that's not true at all, right? That if we're able to sort of rise up out of that enough to extend ourselves in some way to someone else, that what actually happens is not only is there this wonderful connection that can happen, but that we reaffirm that we ourselves have value, that I have something to contribute in this relationship, in this connection, simply by reaching out and beginning to make it. So whatever it is, however it is that you can be of service, if you've got a neighbor that you haven't seen in a while, just check in on them, see how they're doing. If somebody's going on vacation and they're going to need their pet taken care of, then that could be a really beautiful way. But there are so many ways in which we can extend ourselves that actually sort of replenish our own reserves of self-compassion and of being compassionate for others. Yeah. So service was the third. The last, and this one, I love it. I love it because he's totally secularized this. He calls it, I got to go back, solitude, which sounds counterintuitive, right? Because if you're feeling isolated or alone or lonely, that solitude is going to be a place that you get restored. But the reason I am so delighted by that, because it's a secular way that we would refer to as prayer or meditation or going apart, that it's moving out of the busyness and the noise of the world around us into a space where we can really be present to our truest nature, right? And the piece that I loved most about it when he started talking about solitude and this aloneness is, I've forgotten that point. It's really good too, so I'm going to give it just a second and see if I can recall it. We're experiencing it now. Do you get it? Just a couple of times. We're in solitude. Darn it. I'm kind of liking that. You guys are holding it so beautifully. Maybe you're just practiced at it. I don't need to talk about it anymore. Gosh, though, I really loved the insight that he had shared. I wanted it to rise up in my awareness. So in this moving into solitude, in this sort of making space in our awareness for a deeper knowledge, a deeper knowing of who we truly are, that there is that capacity so that we can begin to be more present to the ways in which the connections that we desire so deeply, the connections that, that are sort of built in, there's a built-in hunger for that, and that we can begin to allow them to be filled by not staying quite so busy or not so preoccupied with what's happening around us. Yeah. All right, so just to review the 4 invitations that I'm making that I believe not only can transform us, our personal lives and journeys as we are mindful about those, but as we can extend those out and even apply them in our relationships with others here at Unity on the North Shore, that there's actually a cumulative effect that goes out and can actually begin to shift that same energy of isolation that causes so much pain and separation in the bigger world, in the bigger planet. Murthy says, especially now, which is why I love his characterization of love as a power that transforms. Love is, we tend to think of it as this kind of wishy-washy, or at least culturally, we tend to think of love as a wishy-washy, kind of sentimentality that doesn't necessarily have a transformative capacity to it. The examples that he suggests are the soldier who will throw himself on an IUD to save the rest of his company, right? That's an expression of love that has immense power. And that truly does change lives and changes the trajectory of global conflict, or can, right? So as we can begin to engage with that level of love, knowing that it's within us, we're born with it, it's part of our identity, then we can begin to create a world that is much more connected, much more capable of bringing forth kindness and compassion and those qualities of love that we know to be the essence of our nature and to be the essence of God. So what I'd like to do now is we'll have Felina and Danny prepare us for a time of meditation. This is an old Unity song that those of you who had kids in YOU, you'll know it well. It's sort of what they use to create just a wonderful receptivity in terms of mind and heart. So they'll open us, and then we'll move into a meditation that I'm actually adapting from our Surgeon General. He uses this with mayors. He uses this with all kinds of government sort of entities and kind of corporate agencies that you wouldn't imagine. But I find great hope in the fact that we have such a holistic approach now in terms of our Surgeon General's work. So let's prepare for meditation.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Repeat the first verse a couple of times. Make it almost a mantra if you can. See if you can't find that sanctuary of heart and mind.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
So as we move now into this time of quiet reflection, see if you can't feel that sense of the holy. That holy that may have a home in your heart as we are a sanctuary for the divine. As we begin this meditation, I invite you to just raise your right hand. It's a sign that there's a sense of openness. And just tune in and just notice any sensations you might be feeling. Imagine even that maybe there's light that emanates from you, that you're shining a light through that hand, or maybe you're receiving a light from that hand. But that it has an immense power to connect you to something greater than your human self, the psychical self, as Jesus demonstrated after his resurrection, and even the spiritual self after the ascension. So just imagine that you can feel, maybe it's a vibration, maybe there's a sense of brightness, and I invite you to just move your hand and place it over your heart. And think of it, even if it's just the warmth of hand over heart, maybe there's a maybe even a deeper sort of intuitive sense that you have about the energy that might be being transferred there. But think of it as love. It's the energy of love, out of which the universe has been created, out of which you have been created. And invite you next to bring to mind those people in your life who have loved you. Maybe it's someone you haven't been in touch with for a while, but who stood by you at a very difficult time, who was a great sense of support. Maybe it's friends or family from long ago, or not. Maybe it's something current, who inspire you, who have supported you in living more deeply into the desires of your heart. Maybe it's someone whose example you admire. As you settle into that energy, maybe a sense of gratitude rises up, a sense of appreciation, even a sense of connection. And just know that that love that you had experienced in your connection, your relationship with these people, that love is within you. It always has been. It is your nature. And you are deserving of it. There's nothing you have to do. You don't have to earn it. For love is who you are. And so next I'd invite you, if your hand is still over your heart, I invite you to just maybe allow it to rest with your palms open in your lap. Just another posture of receptivity. And as we rest now in a moment of collective solitude, allow the quietness to emerge. If your mind starts to wander, if you start to feel bored, tag that as a good thing. That there is a creative capacity that arises when we make ourselves present to Spirit in this energy of love that moves us into a greater sense of wholeness, makes us more available to connection with others, and truly allows us to embody that oneness which really is the source of all the good in the world. It's out of this awareness of our oneness with God, with others, and even with the various aspects of ourselves, as we recognize that wholeness, then we truly become a sanctuary where the holy is expressed beautifully. And so now, as we bring this time of meditation to a close, I'm going to ask Felina again to lead us with that same song, the song that we introed this with, affirming that truly we are in a sanctuary, we are sanctuaries for love, for the holy, and for infinite good.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Wow. Thank you. What a powerful message, Reverend Kurt. And this is a segue into our Sanctuary Sunday. And I hope all of you, or many of you, will join us for our first Sanctuary Sunday, that the Board of Trustees has prepared a lunch, and for you and all of us to connect and to join our UNS community. I hope to see you all at the back for our Sanctuary Sunday lunch. Now is the time in our service when we share our love offerings. And there are 3 simple ways to give. You can text the word GIVE to 827-6052, or you can give online at our website, www.unityns.org, or you can mail a check to our 3434 Central Street, Evanston, 60201. And also, please consider a recurring gift. You can do that in the Tithely app, or to avoid any transaction fee, like me, you can set up an automatic payment with your bank's online bill pay feature. It's very simple. And if you're in the sanctuary, please put your gifts in the bowl at the back. We have in the back of the room. So now let's bless our giving and receiving together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Amen. Please stand as we embrace our prosperity and sing our offertory song.
I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
Thank you. Thank you, Felina, and thank you, Danny, our musicians, and thank you for our live stream team, and everybody, all of you that are here. Your presence has blessed us. And now is some announcements. We have back the choir practice, and the Grateful Voices Choir will start rehearsals. They started rehearsals last week. But if you'd like to join, you can meet them here in the garden room on Monday evenings from 7 to 9. Their debut performance will be on Sunday, May 21st, during the Sunday service. All are welcome, whether you have sung with the choir or just like singing in the choir. So just be here tomorrow at 7. And if you have questions, you can talk to Jean Scoot or Carl Ramian. And is Carl here? Yeah, so talk to him. And Jean? Good. So if you'd like to join the choir, contact them. And Saturday, May 6th at 7 p.m., we're co-hosting a powerful healing experience. This is part of our 5 ribbons, pillars, and this will be one of the activities that would address that. And this is called the Sanctuary Sound Meditation and Sound Healing. And it's presented by an artist called Mark Beal. Mark creates healing sound waves using Himalayan singing bowls, those are the singing bowls, vocal mantras, and soothing melodic instruments. And you can register on the Unity website or using our app. If you don't have our Unity North Shore app yet, are we having the QR code? So please, if you don't have this app yet, please take out your phone or your device, and you can point your camera at this QR code on the screen, then just follow the prompts to install that. Okay, it's very, very simple. So now back to the sound healing experience. The ceremony will focus on the abundance and love, sending positive vibes to center us in joyful being. No meditation experience is necessary. If you have a yoga mat, you can please bring it along with a blanket and a pillow. So you're going to be very relaxed when you come for that event. And bring your friends as well, and also dress comfortably. So lastly, our new executive director, Jasmine Sasek, yay, will share an update on our Right and Perfect Home initiative.
Thank you. Okay, so just an update on where we're at with the process of selling our property and relocating to an exciting new church home. The prospective buyer for our property, which is the Kensington Daycare Centers, needs to go through a number of levels of approval at the City of Evanston. So they received the approval from the first level of that, which is called DAPR, D-A-P-R. And the next meeting is May 10th in the evening. That's called the LUC, which is the Land Use Commission. So it's sort of the next level of approval that they need to get for their site plan for what they're going to do with this property. We would love to have some of our congregants there to help support and provide some prayerful energy for us and for this process as that's being presented on May 10th to the city. But that's kind of where we're at. So we're waiting for that. We still need to hear, as this goes through each level of the city, how that new committee feels about the site plan and easement access to the condos to make sure that they're still getting access to their buildings. So we'll see what the Land Use Commission says next, but that's the next step as we continue hopefully moving forward and along in this process.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. We hope to see many of you there at the meeting. And so now Felina and Danny will lead us with the peace song, and Martin will lead our closing prayer. And I just want to mention, please plan to stay and connect with our community. Thank you.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, that this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And now please join me in the prayer of protection. The words are on the screen. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Thank you for being here. Have a great Sunday.
Okay, I hope all on Zoom will stay and have a chat.
The recording has stopped.
Okay. Hello all.